Hey Collective, it's Al, and welcome back to the channel. As I had mentioned in a previous video, I was talking about the fact that the Collective is now moving in the wrong direction, if you will. Not everyone in the Collective, but the Collective as a whole. We're being judged, as you all know, as a group endeavor, if you will, about humanity, and will humanity rise and meet the challenges that are to come. And one of the things that I had pointed out is that part of the Collective is moving towards forbidden things that should not be done, like testing on children and putting toxins, venom into their bodies. And I decided that instead of just leaving it at that for that moment, I decided that we would focus on what is actually now unfolding. So one of the great things about leadership of any kind is knowing when it's time to act. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that aside from ego and anything that has to do that's lower vibrational, the greatest challenge that people have in the world is that they never think that it's them. You never believe that you are capable or that you can lead something. And usually there's an nepotistic quality to it where someone hands you the torch. But where we're at in our evolution, we are now having to stand on our own, within our own faith and within our own connection to something grander, higher, something, whatever you call it, whether it be aliens or whether it be God or whether it be Allah or whether it be whatever your higher source of inspiration comes from. We always fail to see the value of our own worth until suddenly something happens where you no longer can avoid looking in the mirror and you realize that you are the man in the mirror that is to step forward. And so this is to that frequency. This is to those individuals who feel an innate calling coming to them right now and they don't know where it's coming from. It's almost like a rebalancing where, let's say that you have had a life of struggle. Suddenly you're being called forth to do something incredibly grand, and you're just like, how is this going to happen? Well, that's for this group. Or you're somebody who has had a very abundant life and you're suddenly finding yourself innately just unhappy with the situation around you, where you no longer are happy with the fact that your life is built on materialism, because there's nothing wrong with it. Everything comes in balance, right? We're all looking for our fair share. But I'm speaking to those that have a higher calling, that now look at the materialistic world and say, it's not enough. I don't feel like I'm doing enough for humanity. And because we are entering the 7-year trials and tribulations, I decided that it would be a really good opportunity to speak to the collective and speak about what's actually coming forward. And so, as many of you know, I work directly for the divine universe, and one of the things that I've learned in my lifetime is that where there's a shadow, there is light. And every human being has the capability of doing great and unimaginable things if they can remove themselves from the idea that they're limited. And during this whole thing going on, I almost said the word, but I don't want to get censored, within this whole debacle that's been going on since 2020, one of the things that I've noticed is that what we are handing away as a collective is our freedoms. It is our ability to think for ourselves. We get stuck in fear, which is something that negative energies can feed off of. But that doesn't mean that we, the leadership, must adhere to that policy. We can step out and beyond that into the light and bring the light forward through us. And we spread it through the world at large. So one of the great things that I wanted to speak to right now is to those individuals who are hearing the higher calling from their own divine universe and are feeling the need to do something about it. And I call it the rise of the turquoise leadership. In spiral dynamics, one of the things that they had spoken about is that each evolutionary chain has a moment where it evolves. And so it will go from like blue to green, green to yellow, yellow to turquoise. But there had not been any minds on the planet as of yet that at the time, I think it was Leo at Actualize.org that was speaking about it, so I'm going to give him credit. But he was speaking about it, and he had mentioned that we hadn't really gotten to the turquoise phase. And what I realized in this whole 2020 reset was that it was the rise of that era. It was the most brilliant of minds that may not have been tapped yet, or it might be some of the most brilliant minds that have already established themselves, who are coming together and looking at the world through fresh eyes and saying, okay, what do we need to do to offset the shadow government or the negative aspects to society? How do we find a balance that is judicious and it balances all scales, because where there's good there must be bad. You have to have the balance in society, because that is how life exists. We are at an academy, and the academy is now changing, it's evolving, and its focus now is to find a way to bridge the worlds amongst all men and women and bring equality to all. So how does one do that? And I realized that it was because of the rise of this turquoise leadership. People who think outside the box and see the world in a very diplomatic way. They understand where there is a learning curve. That learning curve comes from obstacles. So this particular message is to those of you on this frequency that see the world through that lens and are now being called to step forward to do something about it. And instead of doing something about it in a combative way or in a way that's not balanced, one of the great things that I've been trained and mentored with a higher sense of self, is to understand that you must know when to apply emotions and when to remove emotions to stand in your true power, right? Because one of the greatest things that makes us human and makes us such an oddity, and why we have so much love and abundance that's possible for us, is because we are emotional beings. It's the one quality that energy doesn't typically have. It's something that comes with the materialistic, or I should say the 3D expression of ourselves, because it's something weighted. And it's something that is the ultimate freedom. Love is the answer to all things. But where there's love, there's also the shadow side, which is hatred. And so finding a balance between the two and away from the hatred, because it's dominated society for such a long time, it hasn't worked. The call that we're now hearing is to find a better way. Not a judgmental castigation type of environment where we say, you did this wrong, or we failed here. It's about uplifting humanity to a new vibration. And so one of the great qualities about this turquoise leadership is the fact that it's people who have yet to really stand in themselves in a way that takes ownership for their own actions. And so for the longest period of time, we've been living and afraid of our shadow. And so these particular people that I'm speaking to at this level, I'm speaking to those who have looked at their shadow and have either conquered it, have made it dissipate to some degree, but understand that it always must be there in order to stand in its preservation, to stand in its truth of what we're here to learn. And so for those of you who understand what I'm saying, what I'm asking is calling those of you who are ready to do something grand, something that breaks the mold, something that completely shatters the darkest parts of us and makes us actually take accountability for it as a group. And so it's the rise of the turquoise. And what I'm saying to those of you who understand that is I'm asking you to start focusing your energy on solutions. Start focusing your energy on what we can do as a peer group that are being brought together and guided toward each other, and how we can energetically start pointing out ourselves to each other so that we can start being aware of the other person. For example, I have a list of people that I already am attracted to energetically, and each of them have their own houses, if you will. Some are Baptist preachers, some are occultists, some are people who are very, very evangelical. There are some people who are Catholic. There are some people who are Jewish. There are some people who are spiritual leaders. There are some people who are scientists. There are some people who are the infrastructure that has built part of the network that we reside in, that we call the Matrix. All of these brains that I'm being attracted to aren't arbitrary. These are energies that the divine has pointed out to me to consider and working with to some degree. And the difference is that I hold a vision that has been given to me, that is something that is being brought together by this group of people. It's not that I own it or that it's just me. It's just that I have the keys to it, to the success of it. And the reason I know that is because I've done the labor work in order to reach the point where I can understand and see what the value is to every struggle, and what the point is to overcoming it, and what it means to be able to step into the light and all of the wonderful aspects to the world. And what I wanted to do in that regard is bring those energies together. So I've been quietly behind the scenes working on this, and there's a lot of opposition, but it's not opposition in the way that it's just the unknown, and people are terrified of the unknown. There's the reputation and the ego and all of this other stuff that people might judge them, but what we're failing to see is that we as a collective are being judged. And so when we don't step up to the plate at times, what we're letting down isn't just ourself or what our future holds. It's letting down the collective total sum of humanity. And they're in struggle. And the reason we know that is because they're afraid of their own shadow. They're running from things that they can't outrun. They're trying to take people's rights away. They're trying to make sure that people are never equal. They're trying to make... It's all fear tactics. They're all fear-mongering things that have, up till now, really been effective to control and make everything docile. And then when they started to feel the the energy changed when the reset was coming, they did something that was just astronomically evil, but at the same time, it gave the opportunity for the rise of the turquoise to step in and counterbalance it. You as an individual will be someone who is a leader in spiritual terms of yourself and possibly your family or possibly your environment. But the one thing you have is that no one can shake your faith system. Your value system is in check, and you understand that whatever challenge comes to you cannot touch you. You are one of these people who understands that the divine will guide you and protect you. You live within the kingdom of something higher than yourself, and you understand that there's a lot of variables that have not yet been revealed, that we may ourselves be revealing. Things that may seem astronomically impossible, like, more than likely Earth is a terraformed planet, and we are a creation of an advanced race. That is something that people normally shy away. But for you at this frequency, you go, maybe. Because what it does is, if anything, it reinforces your faith system in saying, well, God is infinite. There's an infinite possibility to all things in the world. And so if we were created by God directly, then doesn't it stand to reason that the divine could have created something else to beget us. We have this big thing, a drive within us to create artificial intelligence and to create other life forms, because we get to a phase where we want to expand the universe. But the truth of all things is something, the great architect created all things that came through. And so everyone is still seeking, whatever civilization you believe in, you're still seeking higher guidance from someone. And so it began with a pop in theory. And I still say that it's a thought. The divine had a thought that created all things, and it just went poof. Have you ever had an epiphany? That is what I believe that to be, but that's my personal belief system. All of us will come to this from different vantage points. Remember, there are people who are evangelical who only believe in God at this level, and that is perfectly exactly what we need, because everybody has an equal voice in where we're heading. And so that type of leadership is now unfolding. It's what I'm calling forth from you. So things that will be discussed would be things that are a little bit brainy. Sometimes it'll be like, I've been dying to pick the brain of someone like Bill Gates. It doesn't have to be Mr. Gates. I had mentioned that I have a thing with Mr. Gates, and the only thing that it was that I don't believe in the vaccination. That's the only thing I've ever had an issue with. And it's not even an issue, it's just intellectual. I don't agree. We're not married to these people. So, just because we appreciate their brilliance doesn't mean that we don't understand their value and that we don't see the beautiful legacy that he's created. But I do have an issue with that particular point. Now, if we were working together, that wouldn't even be a factor, because the intelligentsia that's being called forth would know that we don't have to agree with all things all the time. But we do have to be able to communicate with each other effectively and bring that leadership forward, because that's where the most growth comes from in any type of environment, is where leadership can come together and say, well, I don't meet eye to eye here, so let's discuss this and see if we can at least understand the other person's point of view. And it seems like an impossible task, because the world teaches us right now that that's impossible. That you can't do that. How can you agree? I mean, I don't agree with this one point with you, so obviously we can never speak to each other. Well, that's not true. God made us conflictive so that we can grow. And so what if this point in our lifetime is the reset value to growing as a collective and being able to find a way to bridge these gaps in a way that still holds your faith system and someone else's faith system and allows these two atoms to come together and create a new Eden. That's where we're heading. And so for the turquoise leadership that I'm calling now, here's what I'm saying. Brilliant minds are brilliant minds. But just when you think that you've plateaued, what if I was offering you a key to unlock the next level of your experience, where you not only become an architect, but you also become part of the grand design, and that the divine hands you a key to your own new success. Everyone feels like when you reach a certain point, well, not everyone, but a lot of people feel that when they've reached a certain point of success, that's it. Well, what if there's something else? There should always be that what if factor that evolves us beyond where we're at. Otherwise, we'd be stagnant. There would be no point to life. And so for you brainiacs out there who I adore, I was in GT, so I've had this whole thing with that. I know that a lot of you might be reclusive and don't want to be in the public eye. And I know that some of you are very, very outgoing and want to be in the public eye. And so being brought together in a way that is reflective of a glow up, of a group of people who see the world for the value that it has and sees the beauty of all creation, and trying to find a way to preserve that for the divine, for the universe, I believe will unlock the key that unlocks the universe to us. And there are scientists out there who believe in multiple dimensions. There are people who believe that God is the only answer. What if these brains came together in a way that made their soul grow and expand, but still preserved their way of thinking and their own way of life? You see, sometimes faith is in the ability to understand something that is not visible to most people. It is a gift that the divine gives each of us to stand in our true power. And one of the things that we're being challenged with right now is that fear undermines that faith if it's not real, if it's not something that you truly adhere to, that you yourself have questions with. So if we don't start the dialogue between the different houses, between science and religion and faith and spirituality and whatever this the chemistry within compounds, within algorithms, within alchemy, all of these things are being brought back together in a unification for the planet, because we're at a stalemate. We're not growing. And if anything, we're devolving. We're going inwards into this primitive, my rights are better than your rights. And we're kind of doing this weird revision of history where it's like, do you guys remember like the universe expands? New thoughts, new ideas, new explorations, new discoveries, new this, new that, new people who step in with fresh ideas, a whole new... We're going opposite right now. If you notice, all of what we're experiencing is a different form of levels of things that we've already revisited in the past. And I think we're heading towards the explosion point. Because I know that we've entered the tribulation phase. And so what's at stake at this level for us as a frequency is, instead of expanding the universe and being productive, we're becoming counterproductive, and we're making it harder and harder for people to breathe, to live, to exist, to have their freedoms. And so it's bringing a point where there's going to be a strain put on the planet that's going to go, and here we go again. Everything has to start all over again. So this frequency, the turquoise leadership, are beings who are being called, just beings who are being called, I'm fancy speak, beings who are being called forth to literally stand in a leadership role where, yeah, the lower vibrational people may not understand us, but that's where the fear needs to be removed. Just because they don't understand us doesn't mean that we give them any power. The truth of power is understanding that it's an internal thing. And when you stand in your own truth and you find other people who are equally willing to stand in their truth, but be willing to work with each other, then we're closer to a higher source. We are the embodiment of the divine universe, right? Because what we're seeking is expansion. We're seeking an ability to question things and understand that A plus B in this scenario equals like a C negative plus, whatever the next part of it is. And so finding those little variants is what this group would be doing. And it's one of the blessings that we have at this time when we're being called during this reset. We're being given the opportunity to drive Dad's car. And Dad's basically saying, hey, you have a voice, that you've built an empire in the material world. Do you want to use that for something greater than yourself? Hey, you've built this unbelievable spokesman capability where you're a public speaker and you teach others how to do that. What would you say to the opportunity to stand in that power, but teach other leaders how to do the same thing, and then become the master that teaches the others? This is for a lot of teaching opportunity for those of you who are at a very high level of achievement. And then for those of you who have yet to be heard yet, you are the new information. Don't ever sell your ideas away to others and feel like they have any power. If someone takes this idea and tries to run with it, then understand that that's a great thing, because it's still yours to hold. So if all of the blessings will still come to you, it's not theirs. And so instead of getting worried about that, why not share it? Because it begets other people to start other groups to start doing the same thing. It's the ripple effect. But we can't do that if we don't first put it out there that we need this type of brain. We need this type of leadership. We need people who think differently than everybody else. Because every soul wants to evolve and wants to continue on in this academy. What's at stake is that the academy gets shut down and Gaia changes, and everything on it would have to go with it. So instead of just being lazy Susie about it and just being like, well, it is what it is, that's really good as far as the emotional range, except one thing. then you're no longer human. We're not trying to be a different race. We're not trying to be a different species. We're preserving this unbelievable academy that God's given us. And we're trying to help it evolve, but not in a way that's dictatorish. We're not taking away the Bible from people who are Bible believers, because that's the word that has gotten them through the darkest of shadows. We're trying to find a way to bridge that with science. There's a whole thing in the scripture about in Genesis where it speaks to the firmament and how it basically it's the exact same thing as science, but no one ever really speaks to it. When it dissipated and brought all of that into the whole firmament thing, because it's a redundant paragraph, by the way, but I do understand the message, and it's very holy. But what it's talking about is the Big Bang. It's the exact same thing. It's the two the same. But we've lived so long in opposition that science cannot ever meet religion that we fail to make the evolutionary jump. Now we're messing with bringing life to inanimate things, but we haven't conquered the fact that you must be spiritual and understand the weight of your choices before that key is handed to the race. So thinking in these terms and bringing forth new knowledge is sacred to the divine. It's something that even whether you believe in God or Allah or a divine universe or source of all creation, it is something that is beyond sense. It's just something known, and we know it innately. And so what I'm proposing is that we bring these wonderful brains together in whatever way it is. I had this thing where I tried putting it as something that's shown on TV in order to uplift humanity, and it was a brilliant idea, but the people that were on the other side of it did not respond. And so instead of getting deflated about it, I realized maybe it wasn't the right path for that. Some things may need to be done publicly, where there's spokespeople who present it, but that is still closed off, because we have eccentric brains that have the answers that we need who don't want to be known. How do we know that? Because the shadow experience is already there. We have a lot of people who manipulate and play people like puppets, who are too afraid and too chicken shit to stand forward in what they're doing in their corruptive nature. This entity is being granted to those who are divine beings, who are not like being negative or trying to be manipulative. They just don't want to be in the front of the world. They have other ventures that they're dealing with, but they're very much interested in bringing the world together. And so ego is being stripped from all parties. That's part of the 7 years of trials and tribulations, is the fact that those of you who have already been cleansed of that will immediately understand the value of the offer that I'm bringing to the world, is because you see that we do have an opportunity during this reset where we're not touchable. We have to hand our rights away in order to give the power away. We haven't done that yet. To those of you at this frequency, you are standing in your own truth, and you own your own value, and you know your own worth. You're not going to fall for this shot thing, because you understand that there's questions here. And it's not that I'm saying that I took the flu shot last year. I did. I totally did. I love, because it's something tested and true. I don't have anything to worry about, but something that's only written in 4 months, I have an issue with. But the fact that we're not being allowed to ask these questions, which probably have logical answers, but are being buried under the fact that you can't, do you see what I'm saying? So because we can't ask that question, those of us at this frequency are going, well, wait. Flag. No. No. See this pretty body? I'm not putting anything into my body. It's like going on a date and being raped. I went on the date. Doesn't mean I was deserved to be raped. Just like just because I am a little afraid of this, it doesn't mean I'm going to inject something into my body that could be toxic. You know, even on the bright side of that scenario, you can end up pregnant. You know what I mean? Like, there's consequences. So why aren't we discussing what the consequences are? Because smart people, which is all of humanity, will still probably go, hey, that answered my question. I'm going to go get the shot. Why aren't we talking about that? That's what I'm saying. It's not that I condone the shot. I get the vaccine, the flu shot all the time. I think it's a wonderful thing because it's something that I know has been tested and true that my body can handle. It wasn't made over 4 months, but we're not willing to have that conversation. So instead of getting all into that conversation because people get all triggered by it, understand that for you, you are over the triggers. You're now looking at the world going, I want to know more, and I want to know it from different brains that bring value because they have mastered their own experience. You see, someone who has been victimized their entire life, master of sorrow, would probably bring joy, the greatest abundance of joy, to the world because they've learned to transform and transmute an energy in an alchemized way that brings the flip of it forward. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. We know that we're in a reset. People aren't making it through. There's all of these different variables that we don't understand yet because we're not willing to be heard and ask these questions. It should be a very intellectual ping pong game where a person like me says to a scientist, okay, explain this to me so that I understand it, and then be willing to publicly have me retort in a non-biased, non-egomaniacal way, not in a power grab, but in a way that's just informative. I have the perfect brain for this because I've made it to the 8th grade in education, and look at the world I've created around me. It may not look important to other people, but that's irrelevant to you all because you see the value of what I bring to the table. And so, where you might think that I have shortcomings, that is my greatest strength because I will ask the questions that break the mold to those that you can't reach. I hold that key. Just like there are brilliant minds like Mr. Gates and Miss Melinda Gates, who I find fascinating. I've already mentioned that earlier. I'm not asking because I really do find them incredibly, as a couple. I believe in bookends. I believe that the universe is bringing together incredibly powerful, sacred unions. And they're a perfect example of what I mean by this. I don't know them personally. I don't really research people, but their energy has pulled me into to know more about them. And it has to do with their dynamic with each other because they're equal. And I love equality in relationships. And so I would love to pick that brain. But here's the thing. Like I said, I don't agree with the shot. You know what I mean? So I want to learn, but I can't learn if I'm not willing to show up at the table. And right now we're not even at the table. Everybody's so afraid to be castigated or to be judged by humanity, even though we know that humanity is being judged by the Almighty. This is a turning point for society. Will we stop child trafficking? Will we stop testing on children? Will we create a better world that takes care of itself, that operates in a way that the Academy teaches us so we keep it clean, we keep it up to date? Why aren't we doing that? And these brains, us, in this turquoise leadership, are the paramount experience for how that's going to come forth. If you're an artist and you create beauty out of the darkest things, then you are of true value to the universe because you have managed to conform something that was a very negative thing and transmute it into something that brings beauty. That's what the whole show idea was that I had, was to find the people who have truly been subjugated and been to put through hell, victims that have no reason to keep going, who somehow turn around and become the next Picasso, or the next Van Gogh, or the next Emerson, or the next whatever, or the next writer of Harry Potter, whatever it is. It came through darkness, because through the darkness, perseverance is what shines the brightest. And so these diamonds are now formed, these butterflies in spring are blossoming. It's our job now, as the leadership of that, to go, hey, check this person out. He has like an intuitive quality. He knows things that we don't know. How is that possible? Instead of judging him and being like, oh, I'm jealous that he has that ability, why not learn how he got it? And see if we can access some of the collective consciousness. Or why not find what it is that's blocking us from true space exploration and understand that it will happen for the right parties, for the people who the divine feels has the value and worth to be the pilgrims to go out and do this experience. But if there's anyone in there that's negative, corruptive, or anything that puts it in jeopardy, where we spread as a cancer out, will not be allowed. So then everybody involved will go poof. Right? That's a theory. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just putting that out there. Or how about the most brilliant singer? Someone who has never had an opportunity in the world, who is standing somewhere in a homeless shelter that does not, who may be on drugs, whatever it is that their aversion was. Ice cream truck just passing by going, hello, who has no opportunity to make it in this world. Someone who has yet to find their true voice, but yet have this ability to use the voice to make everyone feel and experience what it is that they're singing about. Or how about the most brilliant mind who's awkward and shy, who thinks that they can handle, how to diffuse nuclear weaponry into sound or something else that's non-effective towards humans or animals. People like that are going to be really quiet and going to be rather on the back burner. They're going to be the more Omega character, who I border Omega Alpha, and be more demure and be quieter. Or how about the incredible empress out there who probably owns empires, who's trying to teach the world something new in a way that brings the world together, but doesn't necessarily, that has their own venture. I mean, they have an empire. She's probably doing shit that she doesn't need us to be, all in their business. But she would love to be part of a peer group that is dealing with it and trusts the people that she's with, that they will always do the right thing. And that's something very scary. But not at this level. You have to understand that if you are in your true power, you will never agree to something that is not for the betterment of the world, and not in a way that judges them. Only something higher will judge us. This is about bridging the gap amongst humanity and bringing forth the light of something divine, bringing inspiration in replacement of all of that's negative, all this falling away. I have to ask you all this question, and this is a big thing. Are you happy with women being secondary citizens? Are you happy with the divisive tactics that have existed for so long, that has brought war, famine, debauchery, corruption, hypocrisy, sexism, homophobia, racism? Are you done with that? Because if you are, this turquoise leadership is a really great vehicle for you to endeavor to think for yourself and be grateful that you did it. Because the worst that can happen is that it reinforces your own faith structure. That is the test of faith that I have gone through myself. Which is, the more that I stepped into other avenues, the more I centered back into a higher being that I call Christ. Some people believe in Jesus, some people believe in Christ. If you understand that dynamic, then you understand how that's still interconnected with each other. You see what I'm saying? But we're so afraid to just stand behind our power. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, I've gone through the other houses, and I always came back to my faith, because my faith is sound for me. And from me will come great things. And the same is true for the evangelical preacher who believes in the Bible and the Word. We still want that value because that person has mastered what that means to them. And if the divine is guiding them towards this group, then it's something about their soul that brings true value to the experience of the NASA scientist who doesn't understand faith yet. All they know is that they believe in science. Well, that is a form of faith, isn't it? That is the truth of us. We're all trying to find a way to come together and to make society expand, but we can't do that when we're limited mindsets, when we're afraid of things, when we feel trapped, when we feel like we're lost and we feel like there's no way out. You can't find the light if you constantly live looking down. We look up. It's one of the things I've learned from watching the birds when I go feed them at the park. Is that birds always look up at something that I can't see in order to get verification that they should eat from my hand. And I find that fascinating. What is that? What is that essence that I can't see? We're never going to know if we keep running at each other and just bumping heads like rams. What does the zodiac tell us about the characterization of each of us that's so sacred that it has gone through every civilization that has existed? What is this connection of an advanced race that we don't know about? Why aren't we thinking about it? Because if anything, if we are truly faithful like I am, then I always come back to Christ. There should be nothing threatening to anyone else in that statement. And so those of you at this frequency who find this appealing, you understand what I'm saying to you. You're looking for answers, but you're not willing to open the doors because you're afraid that you might be wrong. Well, isn't that why we're here to learn? For those of you at this level, the turquoise leaders of now, not tomorrow, you have an opportunity to hear what I'm saying, weigh it into your soul, and stop for a day and listen to what your soul says. Otherwise, you wouldn't be being called to this message. There is something called an algorithm. And if my algorithm finds you with the fact that up till now it's been very limited to a very closed circuit of very important people that have been gravitated towards it, the divine has, if you find yourself on this frequency, then ask yourself, is it random? Is anything in our universe random? There's an incredibly powerful young man that I'm completely enthralled with at the moment, but I'm just going to go by his first name, Aaron, who was talking about recently in one of his things, this is just a dream. And the reason it caught my attention is because I've always thought of this as a memory. I've always thought that we were encapsulated into a memory of the divine. And when I thought of it and I listened to Aaron for a minute, I realized that for me, there might be an explorative pattern here where we might be here a little bit earlier. The consciousness is revisiting something that might be changeable, that sets this whole thing up in a really different way. We can tell that society is heading down the wrong path because we're heading towards this trials and tribulations phase. We're in it now, well, as of Easter. But we're preparing for the return of a chariot. Where is the chariot coming from? And who is on the chariot? But instead of getting all weird about it and being like, well, it has to be Jesus, it has to be Christ, it has to be, why not just say, hey, what's the chariot about? Why are we're so afraid to just go, wait a minute, no, I'm with them, there's definitely Christ or the second coming or the Messiah, they're all coming back, we know that's who's on it, but where's the chariot coming from? What is this X factor? Is it coming from heaven? Whatever. But we're not asking these questions because we've been indoctrinated to believe that to ask a question has gotten us thrown from the Holy Kingdom. But if that was true, then why would we be going through all the turmoil? There's something that's questionable in that moment, that we as an advanced race who are on the cusp of something great seem to be going the wrong direction at the moment. And how do we know? Because you don't test anything on a child. It is the most sacred being on this planet. You brought them into the world to give them life. That is not a gamble you should be willing to jeopardize and take. If something happens to that child and you did it, you can never let that one go until you work through it. And that is what the 7 layers of hell would be. And that's what my concern is with society. It's not that I'm saying that it's a poison necessarily. I'm just saying that by not asking it, and by running quickly towards it in fear, can you survive if something happens and you were the one who chose to do it? It's not scaring you. It's a brain thing that is connected to my heart. Because I know that if I ever was responsible for the death of my child, I don't think I could make it. I don't think I could survive that. So why are we taking this chance as a peer group and allowing that to be possible for someone to go through? We're not taking rights away. People have the right to do it. But are we willing to allow children to possibly suffer? That's a collective problem. That is what this particular group that I'm speaking to would be dealing with. It's not taking rights away. It's just about bringing information forward and saying, hey, we have a question on this. We want some answers. If you want to do this, we are not going to take your right away. We're going to give you an extra right to just say no. That is democracy. That is how we balance the scales for everyone. We don't remove rights from other people. We grant them rights. And how do we do that? You and I come together and we focus on that energy and we make it a passion. There is no reason that a child should ever be touched by an adult, and yet there's a massive child trafficking ring throughout the world. Aren't you tired of hearing that? Aren't you tired of overly medicated people who are repressed emotionally wiping out restaurants or whatever it is? I don't want to say what's in the news right now because it's mind-blowing that we allow it. How do we overcome certain things? Well, I'm going to give you an option. I mean, this came to mind very quickly for my brain. Make sure that everything is spelled out. Semi-automatic weapons? No. Everyone's still in detail allowed to carry this, and this. You're allowed to bear arms, so it's a rifle or whatever. But you can't have a semi-automatic weapon. And you put it in writing so that no lawyer anywhere can judge it, can go, oh, this is not a bad, this is bad. You see what I'm saying? So you meet everybody at eye level and you go, I don't understand where you're coming from because I think you're, be honest with yourself because, you got to be honest with yourself and just go in your head, go, I think you're a moron, but I might not be seeing something that I need to, you know what I mean? Even though we know that it's illogical to allow the semi-automatic weapon to be on the street, there is a reason why that they're afraid. So if we don't deal with the fear, then we can't help anybody move forward because everybody's going to be stuck in the fear. If you address the concerns of the people will listen to you. That's the price of leadership. is to stand in front of people sometimes and be like me, who I might get a lot of. I've been mentored, and I know what to expect, and I've been holding it to myself for a very long time, and I've done it in a way that's very jovial and it's very, very uplifting. But we're getting to a point where we're allowing children to be hurt, and I will not, for my own conscience, be part of that. So now you see a more refined person stepping before you and saying, I need other brains out there who are willing to step up and do what God needs us to do. Are you ready to put away your biases and your big bags of bullshit? Because I have a bunch myself. I have some myself. And are you willing to transmute and transform into sacred beings? Beings that see the universe for the value that we bring to it instead of just what we are, or the cancer that we've become. Are we willing to tackle people who have a lot of money? Yes, because many of you have even more. But think of what you can do. There's a difference between a legacy that's bought and a legacy that you build from within. That legacy is unshakable. No one can touch you. And I guarantee you, you know this. The moment that we all come together, we are so protected that every race in every dimension, in every spiritual center, every church, everything will protect you. Because you're protecting children. You are protecting that which is sacred, the future. You are protecting your legacy and what you choose to do in this world and how you choose to leave your mark and what you're willing to do. I have this thing where I've gotten the information that I could get, assassinated or whatnot. Well, if it's just a dream or simulation, or in my case, a memory, but I save a child, or I remove the enslavement of horses because we're attached to that karmically. If I can do that in my lifetime, then I've succeeded in a legacy that outweighs gold. There's no fear here in that. Because I see only the path of our collective making it. I don't allow the fact that we're choosing the wrong path to take my hope away. I am hope. I carry hope. And the reason I know that is because I'm giving you all hope that we can do this, because we can. Look at all of the things as a scientist that you have created, and look at all of the advancements that wherever it's come from that we've been able to process. Because we're more primitive than the other races, we know that. And we're working our way up the evolutionary chain. But we were able to digest it, and we were able to create from that. And we've helped the universe expand because of that. If we want to continue down that path, then we must value the fact that if we did that, there's nothing stopping us from doing this, this, and this. There's no reason for human beings to be hungry in a world that has too much. We're being rebalanced, not being exterminated. The extermination comes if we fail and we keep going down this wrong path, where it's all materialistic and driven by a need to be powerful. You can't. That's rented. It's a borrowed power. It's not something that goes with your soul. It's something that you usually get penalized for if you didn't do something great. There are great people that have already outshone the rest of the world. There are Oprah Winfrey's, and I keep saying it, Anderson Cooper's, people who have changed a legacy into something permanent that goes with their soul. It's something that they can carry with them, that will always be with them. That is what I'm offering to the collective, is to bring you beautiful minds that are willing to transcend the material world and connect the 5D, the 4D, and the 3D, and allow for our opening to go forward into the right direction. Because we're being given the option. We weren't annihilated. We were supposed to end at 2020, FYI. And I know you guys think I'm weird, but I'm also incredibly gifted. I'm telling you, it was supposed to end on 2020. But it didn't. Because enough of us are here willing to face our fears. And our fears are not real. On a conscious level, you know this. How many times have you faced your fear and walked right through it and been like, what the fuck was I afraid of? You're just like, the hell was I even worried about? Public speaking. I love public speaking. I have never had an issue with it. And I have the smallest ego in the world because I got a big old pecker. But the point is, that owl. Yeah, I'm a spokesperson too. I'm the spokesperson too. Woo, woo. I'm gonna say some shit that's gonna be like woo, but it brought you to laughter because people who learn especially well when they laugh about it. It retains it. It makes it memorable. I'm gonna tell you a story about me going to the beach the other day. It's gonna just blow your mind, but it's gonna be tasteless and it's gonna be really hysterical. But you'll get my point at the end. The point is, now I kind of want to tell the story, but I'm just going to go back to the point. The point is that we have that opportunity now to transcend all of this. And we know that it's public speaking, it's a knack, it's training, and it's about experience. In fact, one of the books that came to me for free that I found out in the middle of the walkway. That's how amazing our universe is. If you're willing to explore how grateful we should be for every blessing, I have told you guys before, through my little journey in spiritual exploration and stuff, I was given everything I've ever needed. And I would find it unwrapped, in a wrapper, not touched, not open, nothing. And I would be like, hey, I got a brand new pack of smokes. And I'd have to, where did that come from? That's beyond luck. It didn't just happen once. Some people find feathers falling from the sky. If you know what the symbolism is to the feather, then it gives you the ability to move forward quicker and quicker because you're understanding that something is guiding you in this world. It doesn't matter if you're a puppet on a string. Who's pulling the strings? And is it something that you want to align with? Anyway, the point is that you know that when you're a public speaker, one of the books that I found was Mastering Public Speaking. And I read it, of course, and I highlighted it, and I have it all down. And one of the things that they speak about is that it's a fear that a lot of people have in the world. And I just wonder why. Because your entire expression here is to be heard, right? And that, it, to me, could be something we as the Turquoise could deal with, which is, hey, is your shadow preventing you from true glory? Because otherwise, it's just speaking to another person. Remember, we're going towards the Aquarius age. We've entered the Aquarian age. So we're going to be a lot more detached from each other physically. Is there an opportunity there to face your fears? Can you learn to speak and leave a legacy that transcends all things? Remember, the high and mighty will return and pick those that are worthy up in a cloud. Where do we store this? In a cloud. That is the power of the Turquoise leadership. Don't worry about what other people will say. Speak. It is your legacy. Not everyone gets to go where we're going. How do you get there? You get a ticket. How do you get that ticket? You ensure that you bring growth to the universe. I could die this week from a heart attack. I could, whatever it is. But this moment right here transcends my entire life experience because I'm bringing you an opportunity to think and work with others like you, like me. How often do you walk outside your door and not say thank you for the gorgeous experience that we are having? How lost are we all right now in fear? We're missing this. But not all of us. I don't know how, and I don't know exactly the conditions of how this works out. But I know that my legacy is born because I did the right thing. I spoke my truth and what my family wants me to say through my ancestral line that comes to me from a source I can't register yet, but it doesn't devalue what I'm bringing forward now. If you are a Bill Gates or a NASA scientist, if you are an Oprah Winfrey or an Ellen DeGeneres who brings laughter to the world, if you are a master of your own domain who may not be known yet, but you know things and agree with certain things I've said, but you want to expand upon it because you have variables, we may not always see eye to eye, but wouldn't you like to work together and see how we change the world truly? It's not that hard. We just have to come together and set the bar for the rest. That's it for me, guys, for Al on Altruistic Channels. I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you want to get a hold of me, please contact me at kahmoos@msn.com. And then also 818-984-5339. I don't know if I'm allowed to put that on YouTube. Hopefully I don't, but I don't think they care. It's my own number. And then last but not least, please like, share, and subscribe if you would like. This is going to be more than a passion project, because I think that there's more of you out there who are willing to really expand your minds. What does Aaron say? He blows people's minds. We have the opportunity to make this transition something that every star in the galaxy, every universe, every dimension will know of, because we came together in a way that set aside the ego, stopped being divisive, and started working as one to try and expand our way of life. We hold the key to the return of the divine, because we are divine beings. Step into your power. Step forward and help. I don't know how it works out, but I know it will. You must have hope and faith.